It's EV Morning, your rundown of everything happening in the world of electric vehicles. Today, Blake and I are talking about little Italians, big batteries and fun on two wheels. So make sure you stay tuned. And if you like what we do here, hit subscribe and the bell icon so you never miss a show. All right, Blake, let's get into the news. There's a lot to talk about once again, and I'm really excited about this next car because 20-something years ago, my very first car was a Fiat Panda. Then my next car, a Fiat Cinquecento. So I have a bit of a love affair from being a 17-year-old learning to drive in the countryside with small Italian cars. And now Fiat are going electric, but they're making it spicy. Tell us more.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this as well. To be honest, just a little touch bored of all these big SUVs coming out. So when you hear the likes of, Fiat coming in with the 500e, but Abarth getting their hands on it, really exciting. So the CEO, Oliver Francois, said that other Fiat electrics are going to get the Abarth treatment in time as well. But
wow.
Yeah, they're because they're aiming to be all electric by 2030. So it makes sense. What are Abarth going to work on if they with the combustion ones being gone? So we don't have all the details yet. It hasn't been fully released, but the 500e, the regular one, does that 0 to 62 sprint in 9 seconds. So you suspect this is going to be a good bit faster. But I don't know, Martin, what do you think? Is it going to be below 7? Will it get down into the 5s? Not sure. What do you think?
Well, when it comes to electric vehicles, viewers of this channel will know that really the sky is the limit because, the fastest cars on the planet are electric. And these days, because, of Tesla, you'd have to say, unless an EV has 3.5 seconds, 0 to 60 miles an hour, or maybe like the new Kia EV6 GT, which is coming this year, then it tends to get looked down upon a little bit. Talking about 9 seconds, 0 to 60 for the Fiat 500e, you start to think, well, it's a bit style over content. It's a pretty car, but it doesn't go very fast. Hey, go back a few years, and these kind of cars, to get to, that kind of performance was unheard of. So look, EVs make everything better. It'll be quieter. It'll be more fun to drive. It'll have that instant torque, that punchiness. But this is going to be an around-town city car, and I'll be interested to know how Abarth go in the EV world, because, Abarth to me is a little bit like AMG with Mercedes-Benz. I'm not huge fans of those because I love EVs these days, but what I do understand about those names, what they emote, is normally drama. So you want AMG to take a Mercedes-Benz, take all the combustion stuff and just dial it up, a big, angry, noisy exhaust. And that's how I see Abarth with Fiat. And so I'll be very interested, obviously with EVs, all of that goes. How do you recreate that sense of drama for these spin-off brands? It'll be these tuning houses, as it were. So very interested to see how that goes. But look, I still wouldn't say no to one if there was one on my driveway. And, we recently talked about the ultimate driveway, and I was saying, well, maybe you want the family car, the ID Buzz, the big van. Maybe this would be the other car. Maybe this would be what you jump in with, your partner, one of your kids, to go do some errands, nip around town, any parking space, but still a load of smiles on your face. So maybe we need to rethink our ultimate driveway fantasy list when this comes out. So let's move on and let's talk about Ford and SK. They're talking about new batteries. A gigafactory is a name given to a battery cell manufacturing facility that will make more than a gigawatt hours worth of cells every single year. Now, some of them make 5 or 10, but what we're talking about here is some really big battery cell production. Why is that important? We'll get onto that in a moment. The target volume for this new facility, it's in Turkey. It's Ford partnering with SK Innovation, or SK On, as that spin-off company is now called, of 30 to 45 gigawatt hours of battery cells annually. It starts operation in 2025, and it's one of many, many gigafactories on the European continent. Now, Northvolt is very famous. We have one here called British Volt, which is getting some publicity at the minute, but they haven't started really that process of even building out yet. But certainly, there's a lot of noise in Europe, catching up with China, you would have to say, in terms of battery cell manufacturing. Can you tell us a little bit more about where these cells might be going, what the purpose is, possibly, Blake?
Yeah, well, what they're talking about, the battery chemistry anyway, is going to be really high nickel, the NCM, so nickel, cobalt, manganese batteries. But, SK On is Ford's biggest battery supplier, essentially. They're providing the NCM9 for the Lightning. So I really, really like that. It's showing Ford's ambition. It's also very, very smart, I would say, that they are getting involved in a joint venture because it's so hard to get batteries, as we've spoken about, as we all know so well. And that's what's really, really limiting this global uptake in EV and EV manufacturing. So well done to Ford for getting involved in it. And I think a smart move as well. As they partner with SK On as well, they're going to have plants all over the world. They've already got one in Bulgaria just down the road, 2 more coming in Bulgaria, I think, in the next few years as well. So, yeah, well done.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant news, because we can't have an EV without a battery, and we are supply constrained at the moment, and I think will be going forward for many years. So more cells, more EVs, not only supply, but as supply increases, prices hopefully should start to come down. Interesting what you say, though, that they're going for the more energy dense chemistries there, because there's a big shift. Even we heard from Rivian recently, a big shift to move away from those kind of chemistries to perhaps ones that are cheaper to make, a little bit heavier to get the same amount of energy in that battery, the lithium iron phosphate, LFP cells. And I thought that would be a big focus going forward, but interesting to see that SK On and Ford are still going for these high performance batteries, if you like, because that would say this is more for those applications, either fast forwards, like you mentioned, or commercial vehicles, which are going to need a lot of juice if they're carrying or towing and things like that. Hey, we should move on. I know that you wanted to talk about the world's biggest selling electric vehicle, but it's actually one of the world's smallest electric vehicles. Tell us about that.
Yeah, there's a pattern coming up here today, isn't there, talking about smaller vehicles. But yeah, like the Wuling Mini EV, and on the off chance you haven't heard this sold 400,000 units in China last year, like dwarfing all other ones. So, but it's a spectacular little car, really. I mean, it's really cheap. I think the rough equivalent, is about starting off at $4,000. But yeah, very small battery, small motor. I mean, 62 miles per hour, I think, is the speed limit on it in the original one. But they are making these Gameboy editions now. It's just fantastic. It's a stunning little story, really. And they've got 4 different versions. So you can get the Hurricane Phantom, the Jungle Traveler, Star Rover, and Party Sweetheart.
Hang on, what are they? Give me those names again. What are they? These special edition names? Give me them again.
So there's the Hurricane Phantom, the Jungle Traveler, the Star Rover, and the Party Sweetheart.
I like the Party Sweetheart.
I was about to say, I'm having the Star Rover, you can have the Party Sweetheart.
Okay. That's so cool. I mean, yeah, this car is very, very cheap in China. It's been tapping into the subsidies in China to sell hundreds of thousands. And actually, they upgraded the specs recently. I think it's getting a bigger battery. You might know the exact numbers more than I do. But they've actually put a bigger battery in, and that unlocks the next... It has done, because the Chinese subsidies are going down this year. But it has, in the past, unlocked even more incentives. So they've made the car better, and they get the next higher level of incentives to make the car cheaper, which is great. But this one's coming with a bigger battery as well?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but they're talking about a 26.5 kilowatt hour battery. That's pretty good. Like for a car that's going to be so small and so light, that's going to get you some decent range. And I think they're putting an extra, whopping 50% increase in the motor size. So it goes from, as it's 30 up to 45 kilowatt motor or something. But still, not going to be lightning fast, but a little bit nippier for the Gameboy edition.
I mean, yeah, my first ever EV, the Renault Zoe, years ago, had a 22 kilowatt hour battery pack, and something bigger than that in the Wuling Mini. Wow. I mean, if they can fit the battery in physically in that footprint, that's going to have some crazy range. Okay, let's move on. And let's talk two wheels. And Yamaha in Europe presenting 6 new electric two-wheelers. That's 3 e-bikes, and I'm fascinated by e-bikes. A couple of new concepts, and we'll see how close they get to production. And 1 production-ready scooter. Now, the e-bikes come in all flavors. So there's a mountain bike, there's a tourer, there's an urban bike as well. Yamaha, a name that is very famous for, well, engineering, but particularly things on 2 wheels as well. Very traditionally blue, now chosen this kind of aqua colour, cross between this blue and the green. And it's really interesting to see how big names like that are finally arriving on the EV scene. I've got to say, EVs on 2 wheels don't really get too much of the attention. The oxygen in the room, it's all kind of taken up by, as you mentioned earlier, the big SUVs, the Teslas, and, all the names that get talked about a lot. But going electric on 2 wheels can make a huge, huge difference, because maybe you have a car or two or three in the driveway and you drive it to your shop 5 minutes away. But there are so many countries where at the minute there are just some really horrible, dirty, stinky two-wheel mopeds around with very, very little regulation on the emissions of those, by the way. Those engines are pretty nasty. Get them off the road. And we're talking a lot of in India and countries like that. Get them onto electric two-wheelers, and you're talking not just hundreds of thousands, but tens of millions of EVs going on the road every single year. What do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I'm really excited. A bit like what you said there, really, I'm just echoing your sentiments. But there's so many of these around the world, and they make so much sense. And you get these lovely little scooters. So just because we're talking about Yamaha, they're production ready on this Neos scooter. So I think it looks cool, that kind of step-through design. The headlights as well. Do you see the lights? I'm getting some Honda E vibes off those. But, you've gotten like swappable batteries in these things. So even if you're only putting in, a 2 kilowatt hour battery or something like that, or you want to have a series of them, as we've seen in other scooters and other brands, it makes so much sense. You can leave one at the office, leave one at home. Maybe your mate's got two in his house when you're going to go and visit him. Fast food delivery guys. It just makes so much sense. And then even beyond that, to get into ride sharing and stuff like that. So, okay, you don't want to spend 5,000 or 10,000 on an electric scooter. Great, just have a little subscription there for a few quid every month. And then anytime you want to go and see your friends, it's rush hour traffic, just take the scooter. Yeah. Makes so much sense to me.
Yamaha, of course, working with the company Gogoro, who do battery swaps, and they have hundreds of millions of battery swaps under their belt. And their batteries are, and our viewers may correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, I think they're swappable battery packs. And maybe you've seen these online, very famous kind of handle on the top, and you pull it out of the scooter, the bike, and you put it into kind of a wall of batteries. And very, very popular. And I think that's either 1.5 or 1.7 kilowatt hours. Like, it's by many standards tiny, but it's all you need. And so with advances in technology, more solid state or semi-solid state technology coming to those, they'll keep the same form factor, of course, because then it's backward compatible to all those bikes that are currently riding around. But they'll get more storage in. So it'll be 2.5 or 2.6 kilowatt hours. And all of a sudden, it unlocks performance and it unlocks range. And it allows companies like Yamaha to come along and do some really, really interesting things.
Yeah, that's really good use of resources. We contrast this with more than 200 kilowatt hours in the Hummer EV, and you just go, really? We could make so many scooters and e-bikes with those kind of resources, but we won't go down that rabbit hole at the moment, maybe.
Now, I was about to wrap up and thank everyone for watching and say, leave us a comment below, but I've just remembered you've been driving a very, very interesting EV recently. Can you just tell us about it quickly?
Well, we've had the E2008 there now. I've had it for just over a week at this stage, put up a few hundred miles in it, and we're going to have a review on this channel, so I don't want to give away too much at the moment. In fact, as you're watching this now, it's in editing, and maybe it's been out already and you've seen it. But is this on your radar, Martin, the E2008? Do you like the look of it, or?
Well, more on my radar is the E208, because my wife saw one recently and she really loved the design. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the E2008. Not really on my radar, to be honest, no. But one of those vehicles that I, not having spent a long time with one, I think is solid. And that's not meant to come across like I'm throwing shade or anything. I think it's unremarkable, but the world needs a lot of solid cars, solid range, solid performance, and hey, a solid price or financing. So what do you think, though? Because you've had it for over a week now. Don't give away the whole video that we're going to get on the channel, but what's your opinion?
I really like it. It's a bit like what you just said there. Is there anything amazing about it? No, not really. No, the design. Sorry, I think the design is fantastic. I think if you're in the market for a crossover SUV, I think it looks fantastic inside as well. So that's a real strength. After that, like, the range is, it's good to decent. The spec is okay. You're a bit right. Like, it doesn't do anything spectacularly well, but really solid. And I have to say, I found it very, very comfortable. Both in the feel of the materials inside, on the road, bigger kind of squishier tires compared to the E208, which I had a few months ago. But when you wanted to put it into a corner for a crossover SUV, that thing could handle. I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, liked it.
kind of unremarkable, a bit squishy. You're asking my wife what she thinks of her husband right now. But anyway, let's finish off the podcast or the review show by saying thank you very much for watching this. If you're watching it, we'd love to know what you think in the comments below. What do you think about the stories that we talked about on today's show? Maybe you've got something else you'd like to bring our attention to that we can talk about on a future edition of this. And thank you so much for watching. Joining in the conversation as well. Hey, we're on Facebook. Got a great group on there called Best Electric Vehicle. We're posting pictures and having discussions on all things electric. Just getting it off the ground now. And we would love to see you in there as well. Hey, thank you so much for watching. As always, if you liked the video, you know what to do. Double thumbs up. It'll tell us you like it, and we'll make more like this. And we'll see you on the next one.